qualified goal must reflect this. We call for minimum allocation floors on the new collective qualified goals for SIDS, directly linked with the provision goal. This floor should be no less than $40 billion in grant equivalent terms per year, a conservative estimate based on our pressing needs. To achieve meaningful progress, SIDS must have access to high levels of concessional finance. This means grant funding for adaptation efforts, not loans. It means grant-based finance for loss and damage response. Do the right thing by our countries. Don't make us jump hoops and then wait. Accelerating the financial support will bring us closer to the scaled-up finance and improved access envisioned by the Paris Agreement. While the Pacific faces the brunt of climate change through sea level rise, the erosion of small islands, flooding, droughts and extreme weather, inaction will lead to consequences felt globally, growing more severe with time. So let us ask ourselves, what if this was my home, my family? This shared sense of humanity should inspire us to work towards tangible, transformative outcomes over the coming days, ensuring that COP29 concludes with meaningful progress. These appeals have been voiced countless times, including by myself at previous COPs. Yet, here we are again, frustrated by inaction, unheard, and facing resistance to the necessary scale-up of climate finance. For the sake of those most vulnerable, we must set a path forward that aligns with the urgent realities we face. My country is ready, again, to play its part. The question remains, are we ready to act decisively and collaboratively for future generations? I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Musalia Mudavadi, Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs of Kenya. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Your Excellencies, distinguished heads of government and heads of state, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I bring salutations from President William Ruto of Kenya, and I make this statement on his behalf. I congratulate you, Mr. President, on your election as the President of COP29 and commend the people and government of Azerbaijan for hosting this historic meeting. Similarly, I congratulate the leadership of the United Arab Emirates for the historic milestones and achievements made at COP28. The COP presidency has called on us to act in solidarity for a green world and to drive actions on finance, energy, agriculture, cities, and human development, climate peace and climate peace nexus. I believe these bold areas hold a great promise in consolidating the gains already made as we escalate the fight against climate change, whose impacts are widespread. In Kenya, the impacts of climate change are an everyday reality. Currently, we are experiencing unusually warmer days, yet only 5 months ago, we experienced horrible floods that led to the deaths of 267 and displaced 281,000 people. The floods also destroyed critical infrastructure, including 1,967 schools, 62 health facilities. Besides, the droughts of last year destroyed livelihoods and killed over 2.4 million livestock. This troubling climate story is not confined to Kenya. Africa as a whole is already grappling with the climate-induced annual losses and damages on infrastructure, agriculture, water, tourism, and other climate-sensitive sectors, ranging from 9 to 12% of the continent's GDP. Consequently, this meeting is a demonstration of solidarity and intention to act together to change the tide and rewrite the climate story. I believe a green and resilient world is still within our reach during our lifetime. This finance COP can make it happen by agreeing to scale up the climate finance based on a new collective quantified goal, quantum for not less than $1.3 trillion annually from 2025. This is key to meet the adaptation and loss damage needs of developing countries. The COP should also agree on quantum of not less than $5.8 trillion for the implementation of NDCs by 2030. Further, we must agree to deliver this vital financing both in quality and urgency, as well as with transparency and ease of access. This is crucial in accelerating implementation of the national adaptation plans. We equally need to agree on a global goal on adaptation as we significantly increase ambition for the NDCs to limit a global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. The COP should agree on the investment measures to triple installed renewable energy capacity by 2030. Enhanced cooperation on carbon markets under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement has a huge untapped potential to unlock the much-needed public and private capital. I am aware the current carbon markets are facing price volatility and misallocation of credits, lack of uniform standards, and climate justice. The COP must therefore address these issues and others in a conclusive manner and operationalize Article 6 through renewable bilateral agreements and centralized multilateral marketplace. The loss and damage facility has progressed commendably from Sharm el-Sheikh 2 years ago to Dubai last year. While I acknowledge the milestones so far realized, I urge this gathering to operationalize the loss and damage fund, as well as to fast-track establishment of a mechanism to handle unique needs of vulnerable developing countries. The response measures are critical in mitigating climate change. However, some measures have negative cross-border impacts on trade, food security, livelihoods, competitiveness, and development. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, global transformation to a low-carbon economy requires an investment of at least $4 to $6 trillion per year to support climate action. However, most developing countries cannot raise this capital due to high interest rates on loans, escalating costs of climate shocks and transition, and depressed fiscal space. We must reform the multilateral development banks to unlock financing at scale and to create incentives such as debt restructuring and sustainability, including the high cost of capital, borrowing, as well as scale and agility of climate finance. Technology and innovation are key to providing appropriate practical solutions and to enhancing efforts by developing countries to eradicate poverty. We must therefore break the hold-ups to technology and innovations to enable the developing world to leapfrog sustainable growth models. Similarly, we must enhance research and early warning systems to bolster predictive capabilities and avert calamities, as well as transform agricultural and food systems to cut emissions, develop resilience, and create job opportunities, especially for women and youth. Mr. President, to conclude, we need to confront the weak political will and the unsustainable economic interests that put profits over people and the planet, standing on the transition to a global low-carbon economy to achieve a green world. We need credible commitments and robust international cooperation for transformation, to transform the climate crisis into opportunities. We can do it, and we should do it. I thank you all.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome Her Excellency Ms. Judith Suminwa Tuluka, Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, heads of state and government, Mr. Secretary General of the United Nations Organization, Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and President of COP29. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today in Baku at COP29 at a time when our planet is dealing with a an unprecedented climate emergency. We can all observe that climate change is accelerating, challenging our projections and our adaptation capacity. The key lies in collective action, which must be bold and underpinned by the principles of justice, equity, and solidarity. My country, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the world's largest lung, is known as a solution country with its vast expanses of forests which regulate global climate, its rich biodiversity, its freshwater reserves, its immense wetlands and vast tracts of arable lands, as well as its many critically essential metals for cutting-edge technologies in this area of energy transition. The DRC is at the heart of climate challenges. However, we are extremely vulnerable to the effects of climate change and global warming. We must stand with our other partners to achieve our shared commitment, because these are serious times. Each country must play its part. Furthermore, we must be transparent and act in good faith to address the issue of climate financing, which must respond effectively to needs with more ambition, more commitment, but also, and more importantly, more equity. In response to the climate crisis, our government has prepared a national adaptation plan, which needs to benefit from significant financing to respond to our shared objectives. There is an urgent need to ease the requirements for access and to accelerate the operationalization of the funds earmarked for L&D. I believe it is sufficiently clear that the biodiversity in the east of the DRC is in danger, and yet we are forced to divert a part of our budget to deal with this barbaric war instead of investing in climate resilience. Therefore, I call for a collective awareness of this tragic and unique situation. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is committed, along with the rest of the international community, to identifying together strategic projects to be implemented in a lasting win-win partnership that will benefit our local and global communities. As such, the DRC has set up a carbon market regulating authority, and we intend to use this to implement Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. It would be remiss of me if I didn't express my heartfelt thanks to the Republic of Azerbaijan and its president for the very warm hospitality extended to us. I also wish to reiterate my call for all stakeholders to mobilize around the commitments that we have undertaken, that we undertook at the Paris conference in 2015. As such, I would join other African group countries to call for the NCQG, the new collective quantified goal, to be established at to be set at $1.3 trillion by 2030, based on concrete results and specific needs of developing countries. I am deeply convinced when we all mobilize and are driven by a shared commitment to preserve our planet, this conference can achieve its objectives. Next year in Belém, we must ensure we can announce encouraging progress and make concrete achievements as part of our environmental commitments. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We will now suspend the statements for 15 minutes. Kindly keep your seats. We will resume shortly. Thank you. Your Excellencies, dear colleagues, we will now hear the special messages. And it is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Cho Hong Sik, Special Envoy of His Excellency Mr. Yoon Suk Yeol, President of the Republic of Korea. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
President of COP29, esteemed leaders and distinguished representatives, good afternoon. I'm honored to join COP29 as the special envoy of President Yoon Suk Yeol of the Republic of Korea. At last year's COP28 in Dubai, we reaffirmed our commitment to achieving carbon neutrality by 2050, aiming to meet the 1.5 degrees Celsius target. We took crucial steps with the UAE consensus, pledging to triple renewable energy capacity and accelerate low-carbon technologies like nuclear power and hydrogen. These are foundational steps toward the world we envision. Here at COP29, we must now establish the mechanisms to translate these commitments into action. A new climate finance goal is essential to reach the 1.5 degree target, and I hope COP29 will adopt a framework that is both ambitious and achievable. Setting strong emission reduction target is also vital as the impacts of climate change are becoming severe globally. This year alone, Korea experienced an exceptionally long and hot summer, reminding us that the time to act is now. With our vision as a global pivotal state, Korea is dedicated to supporting climate resilience in the global south. Our official development assistance increased by 30% this year, with a particular focus on green ODA for countries most vulnerable to climate change. Additionally, Korea recently pledged an extra $300 million to the Green Climate Fund and $7 million to the Loss and Damage Fund, underscoring our commitment to shared solutions. Domestically, we are also advancing a green transition, targeting a 40% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. This is ambitious for an energy-intensive, manufacturing-based economy, but we are fully committed to meeting this challenge. As part of our strategy, we are preparing our 2035 nationally determined contributions in alignment with the 1.5 degree Celsius goal and the 2050 neutrality target. Our carbon-free energy initiative, developed in partnership with Japan, the Czech Republic, and UAE, and the IEA, supports a diverse mix of carbon-free energy sources, establishing standards for global implementation. Climate change is a shared and urgent challenge. We are already seeing the cost of delayed action. If we fail to act decisively now, the climate may reach irreversible tipping point. I hope COP29 will give us inspiration to take bold steps toward achieving the 1.5 degrees Celsius target for the benefit of present and future generations. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome Mr. John Podesta, Senior Advisor to the President of International Climate Policy, speaking on behalf of the President of the United States of America. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Colleagues, on behalf of President Biden, the United States is here at COP29 to help produce successful outcomes that keep 1.5 degrees C alive. We face an urgent question. Do we secure sustainable prosperity for our countries, or do we condemn our most vulnerable to unimaginable climate disasters? 2024 will be the hottest year on record. The consequences of a rapidly warming planet are all around us. From the hundreds of people killed by Hurricanes Helene and Milton in the United States, to the millions of children at risk of starvation in southern Africa from the worst drought in decades, to the torrential rain that stranded students in schools and displaced nearly 100,000 people in Colombia. Vulnerable communities do not just need ambition, they need action. That's why President Biden and Vice President Harris have marshaled unprecedented climate resources over the past 4 years. Because of historic private sector investments made possible by the Inflation Reduction Act, the United States economy will continue down the path of decarbonization, reducing emissions for years to come. And we are on track to meet President Biden's ambitious international public finance commitment of $11 billion per year by the end of 2024. To accelerate our progress here at COP29, we need to first conclude key negotiated outcomes. This includes building on last year's global stocktake, concluding work on Article 6, and adopting a robust NCQG that addresses climate insecurity while building strong, sustainable economies. It should be multi-layered with an ambitious, realistically achievable support layer involving new contributors, underpinned by a set of qualitative elements that evolve the international financial architecture, enhance access to finance for developing countries, and improve debt sustainability. Second, countries, particularly major economies, need to keep their Dubai commitment and submit 2035 NDCs that are economy-wide, 1.5 aligned, and include all greenhouse gases. Third, we encourage countries to submit their first biennial transparency reports by December 31st. The United States will meet that commitment. And fourth, promote the action agenda in key initiatives outside the Paris Agreement. Colleagues, we have a clear choice between a safer, cleaner, fairer future and a dirtier, more dangerous, and more expensive one. We know what to do. Let's get to work. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. As I've indicated, we will shortly resume the first part of the high-level segment for statements. Please remain in your seats. Dear distinguished delegates, let us now resume the first part of the high-level segment. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Mikhail Mushtin, Prime Minister of the Russian Federation. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Distinguished Chair, ladies and gentlemen, I greet all the participants in the conference. Under the leadership of President Putin, Russia is taking active part in measures taken by the international community to combat global climate change in order to guarantee the well-being of future generations. We've managed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions virtually twofold compared to 1990. By 2050, we're planning to achieve carbon neutrality. We are placing emphasis on enhancing energy efficiency, developing electric transport, and introducing modern solutions in agriculture and forestry. In Russia, 85% of the energy balance is already accounted for by clean, low-emission generation, first and foremost gas, nuclear power, and renewable sources. We are enhancing our own technologies and productive capacity to decarbonize various sectors. And of course, we use our natural resources. Our country possesses a fifth of global forestry resources, and the volume of absorption of carbon dioxide exceeds the equivalent of 1 billion tons. And President Putin has stressed that Russia is calling for the pooling of efforts to combat climate change. And here I'd like to highlight 4 priorities. Firstly, agreeing on a new collective goal for climate financing in the interests of developing states. We need to make support for them real and tailored to the conditions in which they find themselves. Moreover, the resources should be directed towards decarbonization of high-emission sectors as well. Secondly, it's important for the transition to low-emission energy to proceed without it being to the detriment of the development of low-income countries. It's not possible to use the problem of global warming as a pretext for discrimination, unfair competition, and artificial restrictions. There's also a need to introduce practical mechanisms for implementing international agreements. There's a need for a single system for assessing the quality of climate projects. And of course, we need to establish cooperation amongst the scientific communities. National research can replenish and clarify data on climate change on a global scale in order to ensure effective decisions for decarbonization and adaptation. Distinguished colleagues, Russia remains committed to low-carbon development. We are improving our legislation. We are extending voluntary assistance to vulnerable countries in the area of climate, and we are ready to continue such work in close dialogue with all interested states. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency. This brings us to the end of our national statements for today. Distinguished heads of states and government, delegates, honored guests, the opening of the second part of the high-level segment will be held on Tuesday, 19 November, in this plenary at 10 o'clock in the morning. With this, I declare this joint meeting of the COP, CMP, and the CME adjourned.
in Brazil. I met him in the event of cities. Yesterday I met him. I went for the cities event of ICLE in the pavilion, but his term is ending. Oh, yeah.